Hi Anand, I'm Arya, 14 in the ninth standard. I am a reader. In between the worlds of PCMB, English, and of course, cricket, I devour around 100 books in a year, give or take. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is my current favorite. I'm excited to talk to someone who has the same favorite. And I apologize for the inconvenience.
First of all, thank you, Arya, for having me for this talk. And it is really good to have a reading habit. And if you can sustain it throughout your lifetime, that would be the best thing. And it is always best to begin at an early age, as you are doing it right now. Well, by the way, 100 books a year is way too arduous goal for an average reader, especially at your age. So, I would first like to congratulate you for achieving such a feat. Uh, Coming to your book choice, Hitchhiker Guide to Galaxy DG is actually one of my favorite books, and I think it's way ahead of its time. Even if you talk about 2022, very rarely you find such an apt combination where you have this perfect mixture of humor, tragedy, and sort of like the future outlook all stitched together in a perfect story. And I really actually developed my love of science fiction because the first science fiction book I read was Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy, and I was dumbfounded when I stumbled upon my next choice, which was the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov. I think that actually takes science fiction to a very whole new different level. I mean, this guy, Harry Seldon, the main character, has already got an outlook for 30,000 years for humanity and how to save humanity by, repositioning few humans outside the empire. And, it's fantastic read. And some of the things that Isaac Asimov has actually shared are, I would say, even way ahead of its time. Him being physicist actually helped this book to have that kind of depth in terms of having that depth in science. uh, but if you actually look at science fiction is a very rare genre, right? And you tend to find a very select limited set of readers which are into it, and everyone has their own set of sort of say classification within the science fiction category. It could be space, it could be a robot, it could be time. Lot of different subcategories emerging out in science fiction category itself.
In the future, if we have one, will we have readers, Anand?
Uh, but those who get into science fiction, they carry a very different perspective of the world as compared to the rest of the folks. In fact, Douglas Adams, in one of his interviews, actually quoted that they do say that real life is a crutch to those who can't handle science fiction, right? So, yeah. So, and now if I actually come to your question, will we have readers, right? Well, that's a tough one to answer, especially if I look at what's going around in the world, right? I mean, nowadays there are gazillion ways to entertain yourself. You can start from Netflix, social networking, e-commerce shopping, YouTube, and whatnot. In the old days, I would say pre-internet era, even 90s, 80s, or before that also, it used to be a very simple pleasure of holding a big book. Reasons ranging from an intellectual comfort, craving for knowledge, or even an intense curiosity to read a story, or at times just to smell the text, just to smell the book, or just to feel that texture of the book. Right? Those were real charms associated with holding a book. Nowadays, everything is online. Every information is available online. People tend to prefer a Netflix series or a movie rather than reading a book for the same particular topic. So I think world is changing. And I remember my childhood when there was a time when I actually asked my father to get me Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland because I had read the small story of the original book. It was one of our English reading sessions in the class, and I think there was one tea party session of Alice which was happening, and I got really curious about the book, and I asked my father to find it out, and it took a lot of time for him to get the book, but I was so excited, and when I got hold of the book, I mean that excitement was at a very different level because those were the days when accessibility was also a concern, right? So we don't have that right now. I think we have a lot of avenues around us, but I believe it continues like that, then no, we won't have as many readers as a percentage of population as we used to in the past. In fact, according to a US statistics says that average books read by a person have fallen by more than 20% in the last 30 years. that surely is not a good sign. But you know what? Having said that, I believe in one thing, Arya. Even though in future we might not have many readers, but the future will be designed by those who are readers.
Internationally, students are rated on PISA scores. India has also opted in from 2021. This marks on maths, sciences, no surprises there. And now the surprise. It also marks on reading. When I try to relate it to the world around me, it seems that reading can just be a hobby, right? Nothing more. It definitely has not been able to sit at the same table as maths and science. Or can it?
To this question, which is about related to PISA scores, and your question about whether reading can just be a hobby and nothing more. I don't completely agree with the notion of labeling reading as just a hobby. Of course, reading is a default item in the hobby list for most of us, right? If you get to talk to somebody and you tell them, you ask them that, what is your hobby? I think it will be like reading, writing, poetry, travel. I think these are something which are like, I think, hard coded hobbies. They just say it because they want to say something, right? So it's like a end of the discussion sort of thing. But yeah, I think most of these people they don't exercise this hobby in depth, right? And what do you actually mean, what a hobby is, right? Hobby is something that you do in your leisure time for relaxation, right? And that's a pursuit that has got no correlation to one's profession, be it a student or even a working professional. Whatever you do in your life, be it your regular curriculum studies or your work in your office, you have to read. How can you not? Even if it is a textbook for your studies, or a memo at the office, or perhaps a business book that's important for your success, right? You have to read it. Now, if you're categorizing reading in two types, one is for leisure and the other for work, then your question is valid. And for different people, leisure reading can be of for a different genre itself, right? So, for example, I don't treat fiction as a leisure activity or a hobby. For I have seen myself learning a lot from even fiction book, starting from say Alchemist, Fountainhead, Foundation, even mythology legends like the Immortal of Meluha and Meluha series by Amish Tripathi. I strongly believe that a human being craves stories, and in the past, the elders and the wiser ones would often tell old stories of wisdom that would actually help the people to grow as a better human being. So I somewhere I would like to take a very different stand when it comes comes on labeling reading as just a hobby, and it can't sit on the same table as maths and science. I think it is equally essential, and even if you want to grasp maths and science in depth, you definitely need a good reading skill, and that has to be a basics of everything, right? Now, as far as Paisa is concerned, I think India did participate once in 2009, and I think they scored, it was not a pretty story. I think they scored something like 72 and 73 ranks, and they are total 74. And that poses a lot of questions in terms of our curriculum and whether we are doing something wrong out there. I mean, after all, Paisa test, it's not only about reading, but even maths and science is part of it. And traditionally, Indians are known to be good in maths and science. Now, sadly, I think India did not participate in 2022, and for reasons, I don't know about the details of that. But the bigger question that we have to ask is that is that are we trying to say that Indians are not good in reading and they are good in maths and science? And if you're trying to sort of find that correlation out of the PISA score, so I won't agree on that, because PISA is like mix of everything, and of course India might have scored lower in reading and somewhere respectable scores in maths and science. But I think when it comes to exhibiting skill such as reading comprehension or writing skill or a language skill, anything related to interpretation of a particular story, a fact, or a narrative, there is an element of a creative infusion that is involved, right? I mean, you need to be a little bit more creative in organizing your thoughts and organizing the facts and information in a very systematic way. And that comes from a very research oriented mindset. A mindset that is well cultivated, sort of like it is somewhere part of DNA, and DNA evolves with time, right? Americans were not as systematic, organized as they were when they would have started their civilization. Same can be true for many other countries and many other regions, right? India, for a very long period of time, had a huge struggle. If you even look at the history of our country for more than 400, 500 years, right? We have been ruled mostly by rulers from the West and whatnot, and we've never been pretty much organized or systematic in our way of thinking. Most of us were, most of our ancestors, their bigger issues were survival and struggle for independence, right? Only after 1947 we started to sort of took control on our hands, and we had to try to rebuild an entire country. It took many years to come to a sort of like a sustainable economical state of the country, where you can now think about the next level, which is, can we be more research focused, can we be more specifically systematic, can we create some wonders which can be used by the entire world, right? So we're already way behind the curve when it comes to these kind of development, because the West has that luxurious advantage for not struggling for as long as our country had, right? And this is just my point of view, and I won't say that is true or false, but it's an opinion that I have formed based on my readings, my assessment, my interaction with people. So I will not judge our country that we don't have we don't have people who are good in reading skills, or we don't have that reading comprehension ability, and our students are lacking in that. I think our students are fantastic. There have been phenomenal success coming from Indian students in past, not only in terms of just clearing the examinations, which are regular examinations conducted by Indian government, entrance examinations like medical, engineering, commerce, etc., but also when you look at the entire world and you look at the leaders of the world, I think Indians are occupying significant positions all across the world, right? You can talk about the CEOs of the companies like Microsoft, Google, and now even the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, right? So I believe we are getting there, and reading will play a very very important role. I am really looking forward for the another PISA test, and I hope, because I have seen a lot of development in education curriculum by Indian. In fact, the national education policy itself is fantastic. I think once it is rolled out, it will give a huge impetus to Indian students to shine in the global scenario. And I'm pretty confident that the next PISA score will definitely reflect an improvement. And even in reading, maths, and science, we are going to get a significant jump.
Corona changed a lot of things in the way we used to live. With people still stuck in their homes, they found time to discover reading, and some discovered writing, like yourself. Please tell us about your rise to a writer and about your book.
Yeah, I think many people were stuck in their homes during Corona, right? And the COVID lockdown was, uh, it was a very troubling times. So I actually took this as a sort of like I would say goal that I need to complete a book in this COVID lockdown. And I always wanted to be a writer. Ever since I was a child, I wanted to be a writer, right? So my entire premise was that I wanted to write a very serious book in a fiction category. I was not very I was not an avid fan of writing short stories. I mean, I did write when I was a student back in 90s and early 2000, but it was more mainly for academic purpose. However, I wanted to actually explore a very very serious topic and present a story to the entire world, which talks about future, which talks about impact of space or science, scientific innovations for the future. And how would world appear like in 2030, and what are the sort of things that could happen, and what are the sort of things that are good for humanity, and what are the sort of things that we should definitely watch out for. I mean, science is a good thing, right? But if you abuse science, it is definitely not a good thing. So, I wanted to write a story based on that, and the extinction level event was a concept that I really loved. I've been watching a lot of movies about extinction level events, and I also read a couple of books about that. Foundation itself is a very great example, and I wanted to actually explore this topic a little bit further. So I started, you know, reading about it. I started reading articles from NASA. I started reading articles from ISRO. I started actually exploring what NASA and ISRO are, and then I just started to explore all the agencies in the world which are working in the space innovations, and then I sort of imagine that what sort of agencies and what sort of organizations could exist in future, right? Once we have already developed the space technologies to an extent that we are very near to transporting humans out of the planet, what are those agencies across different countries at a global level that will operate? So I wanted to write a story about that, and also add a little bit of drama and a little bit of, say, politics, and little bit of tragedy and little bit of love and all that aspect in a story, and then present it to a world. But I always wanted to attach a deeper meaning to it. So that was a motivation, and this is my book, or known as Reboot, the Reboot Nebula Chronicles, which is basically based off 2031, when basically human beings have started exploring the possibility of life beyond Earth, and they are working on scientific technological advancements which can actually help transport humans beyond Earth. And while they are doing it, a sudden surprise is thrown out to them that possibly Earth is about to be destroyed. And what are the people going to do about it? And what are those agencies? How would the world leaders react to it? What are the initiatives some top agencies will have to prevent it? And what are those kind of implications of such a news at a global level? So it is a mixture of that, and there are some key characters based out of a couple of places that I have chosen: New Delhi, Bangalore, Belgrade in Serbia, London in UK, and also again Washington DC in US. So it's a sort of like a global plot which revolves around various agencies, various governments, as well as a lot of characters across different countries, and everything is tied together to a possible extinction level event that Earth is about to be destroyed, and all these people are, doing their part to prevent it.
How can we recreate an environment which will help in the propagation of reading among children?
Well, that is a good question. How do we recreate an environment, which can help to create that curiosity of reading among children? I think, first of all, I would like to definitely congratulate Bookbibuli. It's a great initiative. It's a great idea that is actually promoting that curiosity amongst readers, early readers, children, who can, you just giving them a platform that children can, their voice can be heard, and they can be represented at a scale where many listeners are able to hear their views. They are able to talk to a lot of authors. I think it's a great platform, and I've been tuning to the podcast, and it's the quality is really good. So I would like to congratulate Big Bookbibuli. I think this initiative is needed, and I think more and more people should come up with such initiatives. uh, Other thing that can be done is that parents should become more active towards cultivating a reading habit among children. They should definitely not just delegate it to their teachers, that they will automatically do it because it is part of the school curriculum, but they should themselves get interested into it, and they should themselves talk to their children about what they are reading, what are their interest area, and they themselves should research about what books are good for them, and they should even read them along with children. I think these are the things that we have to do, and I really believe parents and teachers have a great role to play in cultivating this habit.
Though the fiction part comes naturally to children until it is cured out of them by the world, the science in the science fiction needs some footing. At what age do you recommend that it should be introduced to a reader?
Well, I don't think there is a specific age to introduce the science in the science fiction, right? I mean, you can always introduce basics of science at an early age, even as early as say 7 to 8 years, right? Uh, Even earlier, if it depends upon the concept, right? Some very prelim concepts are gravity that can be introduced in the books, right? And then you can actually go to other science fiction concept like magnetism, electricity, as you know, the age group, from the age group 8 to 10, they are well versed with these terms. They know what an electricity is, they know what a magnetism is, so they would be able to correlate a topic that talks about electromagnetic pulses and all that thing. So I think there will be a lot of topics in science that are really interesting, and there's an age to introduce each and every topic. So of course I would not introduce say sort of like a relativity kind of a concept, right? The theory of special relativity to a student who is basically 8 to 9 years old, because they will not understand it. So that particular genre, that particular book would be relevant for people, or students of say 14, 13 years age group. So it really depends upon the topic, the science topic that you are actually introducing as an author, and I think an author should be able to sort of provide that categorization in their books.
Only 5% of the books in India are non academic. We need far more than that to develop our children. What will be your recommendations, Anand?
I totally agree that most of the books are academic and only 5% are non-academic. We need far more than that. I think we should definitely have a non-academic, say, split into two, say a fiction sort of genre as well as non-fiction sort of non-academic genre. And my recommendation for fiction would be, so I'm a science fiction writer, so definitely would be biased on that. But even books like Harry Potter series, Lord of the Rings, especially Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, because the book has real depth into introduction of the entire environment, characters, hook of the story is really amazing, and the work done by J.R.R. Tolkien is paramount on that. I think it also has great sort of like a vocabulary bank that children can get exposed to, and they know how to actually hold on to a plot. And I believe that if you're able to finish Lord of the Rings, you can finish any other book, right? So Harry Potter is very interesting and intriguing, so you can just carry along with that. A Wrinkle in the Time is a good book. There's also a movie about that. Foundation series by Isaac Asimov. I'm again repeating that again and again. It's one of the best science fiction series that anybody can read. Again, Hitchhiker Guide to Galaxy that you mentioned, right? So these are sort of the books that I really believe are a good addition. Uh, Biographies. There's another genre which is sort of like a put like non-fiction slash biography genre, and some of the interesting biographies are like Story of My Experiment by with Truth, right? Mahatma Gandhi's autobiography. It is a very amazing read. I've read it, I think, more than 2 or 3 times. I really love it. And then it all depends upon if you're a fan of Albert Einstein, you read a biography of Albert Einstein. If you want to read Steve Jobs' and autobiography, go ahead, pick up Walter Isaacson's book, and even Isaac Newton. And you can find all that about autobiography. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. And then again, some parents also advocate that their children should also read self-help books, right? Because these days there's a lot of stress for children in terms of pursuing higher goals and getting higher scores, and being sort of like brilliant at even an early age of 8 to 10. I think it is really important for children to have sort of like emotional intelligence as well as also a positive outlook towards life. And books like The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, they really help, right? So, and it depends upon what kind of personality you have, what sort of output that you want to have from your reading. Are you looking out for a very positive motivational outcome that I'm really feeling stressed and I really need to get some motivation, these are my problems, what is the right book for me? Should I look for something which talks about law of attraction, so that I'm really hopeful about the entire world and I'm really hopeful about a future? Should I really actually look at, say, maybe health, right? I don't see my habits are really good. Can I cultivate some good healthy eating habits or exercise habit? should I read about spirituality, should I read about yoga? It depends upon what is the sort of state of mind or sort of like habits of children. So yeah.
Thanks, Anand. It was a far sighted discourse. So, we would have a future. The future will be better off with more readers. The children of the future will need books to succeed. But the reading habits of the next generations will be severely threatened by the onslaught of new media. I cannot say that that is a good thing after all. We, parents, teachers, children, the schools and the institutions will need to work to deny this impending reality. And I hope we get through it, and I hope that Bookbibuli helps some readers get through it. So, happy reading!